We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And Happy New Year. Welcome to the first episode of AVRant for the year 2026.
That is correct.
Back. Yeah.
First one for 2026.
Sure is.
Okay. So a couple of housekeeping things before we begin.
Indeed.
Yes. Welcome to the new year, all of that. Everybody's been sick except for me over here. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I hurt my back again, which is something that's, I think I talked about not that long ago, where I was just sitting and then it started hurting, and then I was taking what can only be called a questionable amount of Advil at a time to make it feel better.
I remember
Usually
that
knocks the pain out, and then it sort of goes on its own. But that was just a couple of weeks ago. And then this weekend, my wife wanted us to go climbing as a family, which is something I haven't done in over a year. I haven't done since before the house flooded. I haven't gone climbing. And so we went climbing, and I took it very easy. If you know anything about climbing, I didn't climb anything harder than a 5'9". If you don't know anything about climbing, then that would have looked, some of those routes would have looked hard to you and would have been hard for you. Yep. But they are very easy for somebody who's got this, the skill, because a lot at that level, it's all about technique and not about strength. Okay. So it was, and I climbed very slow. I was very careful because I knew I hadn't climbed in a long time. And usually I climb 10s and 11s, which are much harder. And I just wanted to take it easy. I didn't want to hurt myself. Well, and for those of you that don't know or don't remember, and I don't expect you to, I have been through physical therapy multiple times. Yes. I have been to multiple doctors, and they just say, "Oh, you just need to strengthen the muscle, this or that or whatever." And I go and do it, and afterwards I'm like, "Okay, well, yeah, seems like everything should be all better now." And then the whatever is causing the back injury continues to happen. So it's not properly diagnosed yet and hasn't been fixed, and physical therapy has not solved it. I'm not saying that it won't solve it. I'm just saying that the physical therapy that I've been doing is not the right physical therapy. I don't know what it is. Okay. Anywho, so if halfway through this podcast I just get up and leave, it is because I cannot sit in this chair any longer for now.
We've all been warned, including me.
I'm in a lot of pain, and it's my anniversary today. So January 6th, the day that is only famous for being two things. One, the 12th day of Christmas, and two, my anniversary. Sure. Nothing else of note has ever happened on January 6th, so that I can remember, at least.
I mean, with that whole preamble, I want to say happy anniversary, but is that the right?
Yeah, 25 years, man. It is. It's happy anniversry. Okay, 25 years. All right, good. Happy anniversary. It's a big deal, and my wife was like, "We should do something." I'm like, "Should we?" I'm tired.
Rest up. That's something.
No, so we're going out to dinner at a restaurant I've been wanting to go to for a very long time. It's like one of those farm to table places, and it's kind of high end. It's not like French haute cuisine, fine dining, but like very well thought out and deliberate choices as far as how things are cooked and stuff like that. So I'm very excited about it. Okay. So we are going to go. I am going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. Neither of us is drinking because I don't drink, and she's doing dry January, so it's going to be like 50% cheaper than it normally would be because the alcohol is so expensive.
You might have a ton of ibuprofen in you anyway, so it's probably best not to pour a bunch of alcohol on top of that.
Who knows? So, yes. So that's what's going on with me right now, but let's talk about the last 2 weeks, Rob, because you've been gone for 2 weeks. How was your holiday season?
I will say I had a lovely Christmas break. We decided on scheduling so that, like my main nuclear family, that we would do our whole day get together and big turkey dinner and everything on Christmas Eve this year, and I'm glad we did. It worked out very nicely that way. I was able to see cousins. One of my sets of cousins, they live in Ontario, and they were only here very, very briefly this year, and I would not have been able to see them had we not scheduled the way things the way that we did. So happily, I did get to see them. It wasn't a super long visit, but still, it was very nice because I really only see them once a year. And then my other set of cousins, got to go out and see them on Christmas Day, along with my uncle, who's not been feeling so great this year. Normally, he does a big get-together on his side of the family, but he was avoiding doing that this year. It was just a little bit too much for him with how he's been feeling lately, but I was able to see him and my other set of cousins on Christmas Day, and so yeah, everything went very nicely there. I didn't have a particularly raucous New Year's Eve, but I had a nice time, and yeah, so I had a lovely holiday time, and it's been good for me. How was yours, Tom?
It was good.
Okay.
Like I said, my kids one kid came home, got sick.
Yeah.
Then he got my wife sick, and then he got my other son sick. And then the first son got better, the second son got better. My wife kind of lingered for a while, and then my eldest son got sick. So it took us until this last weekend, really, until after the new year for everybody to be healthy. I did not get sick, so hey, good on me. I chalked it up to good living and lots of coffee.
Sure.
I don't know.
It's got to be that.
It was too cold for me to go cycling, so it wasn't because of the exercise, that's for sure. But yes, it was quite nice. We stayed around here. We didn't do anything phenomenal. We just took it really easy. Spent some time with the boys. We haven't seen. It's the first time we've all been home in a house since the hurricanes. So they came and stayed with us at the apartment complex a couple of times.
Right.
But we were lying on top of each other.
On top of each other, yeah. No kidding.
So this was not, it's not as comfortable as when each one of them had their own bedrooms, because we don't have that anymore. But, the theater room got turned into a bedroom, and, it was fine. So it was good. It was good to have everybody home. It was great to see the kids.
No kidding. How's the new TV?
The new TV, yes, which I was supposed to sit down with Rob and go through the settings to make sure I got it right. I will tell you that my son, who was sleeping in there, was like, I can't fall asleep to this TV. It's too bright. I'm like,
yes.
Yeah, it is. So he's
there's really not a ton to do settings-wise with that TV. You throw it in filmmaker mode, and you're basically done. It's not much else.
So he's been turning the brightness down at night, like all the way down, as low as it'll go.
Yep.
Which is still not low enough.
It's still not dim at that point.
Yeah. I love it. I think it looks. I don't even know if you put the C2 or C3 or whatever I had, the LG C2 next to this Q90, whatever it is.
D. You got the Q90D from 2024. I don't know that I
would be able to definitively point out a difference.
Yeah.
But setting it up was easier, I felt like.
The differences between OLEDs, much smaller splitting hairs differences versus having gone from any other display to an OLED, where it's just much more obvious. Yeah.
The couch got scooted back so that the air mattress could fit in there. But the TV looked a little bit smaller. That son left last night. Okay. And I cleaned up in there a little bit and scooted the couch forward. So we'll see how I feel about it later. But overall, I think it looks phenomenal. It's just so good. It's just so good. It's hard too, because when there's a gap between times of TVs, even if it's just the time it takes you to set up the TV. Going and looking at things and going, oh yeah, that does look better. I just remember how many times I would notice how gray the blacks were with the other LCD TV I had. And now it's just black.
Inky black. That is the joy of OLED.
The colors look phenomenal. I've watched a couple of movies. The motion on it looks great. I've had zero problems with the LG. When I set it up, I was like, something's wrong a couple of times, before I got it dialed in, and then it looked good. But this one just looks out of the box.
There you go.
Like you said, I think I went to Ertings and followed a couple of their settings on the TV and went, all right, I guess
even that is barely necessary.
Yeah. And then the only thing that I had to do was go into that power mode or whatever it was and turn off the
power saving.
Yeah. Well, no, go to the home screen thing, turn that thing off.
Yeah.
Once that happened, then it's been no problems. The only issues I've had with it is if you can call it that. One time I turned the TV on and it was like, do you want us to optimize your settings? I'm like, what's happening here? And I said no, and it's never done it again. So
okay, good.
I don't even know if that was from that. It could have been from the Apple TV 4K. I don't know what.
Yeah, that could have been like a HDR10 Plus thing or something. Because Apple TV 4K is capable of outputting HDR10 Plus, so it might have done that auto detection. That could have been it.
Yeah. Anyway, so the TV is nice. I have been watching some things over the vacation. So
we'll get to that just a little bit
here.
But just before that, I just wanted to mention congratulations to Sweden. This was the IIHF World Juniors Hockey Tournament. Very important watching for all Canadians over the New Year's break there. Starts on Boxing Day and goes across New Year's. So Sweden won the gold medal this year in the World Juniors men's hockey tournament there. And Canada came with the bronze. Canada
juniors mean kids or juniors mean not professional?
Well, many of them are drafted, but they're not full-time NHL players. So they're either undrafted or have been drafted but are not officially NHL players. But
they're not like 12-year-olds. They're like
No. These would be 18 minimum. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at the youngest they'd be 18. So so it was a interesting tournament. Czechia continues to be the absolute nemesis of Canada these days. Keep knocking us out. So good on them. They won the silver. Sweden defeated them in the finals. So there you go. If you're wondering where the USA was, they got knocked out in the quarterfinals. So there that by Finland, who came in fourth.
Hey, our best team comes from Tampa. Give us a break down here. I don't really understand anything about hockey.
And I continue to be very happy and excited about my new car. And I gotta say, I feel very, very comfortable as far as recharging goes, because initially I just went to the Tesla superchargers because my car uses the NACS port, the Tesla style port. So that was my first thought, was go there, and that works very well and very, very quickly. But since then I've looked up where else can I charge this thing and not at the slow charging speeds. So our big provincial electrical company here is called BC Hydro. We have a hydroelectric dam. That's where most of our electricity comes from in British Columbia. So it's BC Hydro, and so they have their chargers set up all over the place, and it was very easy registering with them and setting up. They do not supply the NACS chargers, but my car did come with the adapter that changes the CCS charger to the NACS charger. So plug it into the adapter, plug that into my car. That charges great. And then the Chevron stations around here and the Shell stations, but mostly the Chevron stations, many of them have high-speed chargers set up there, also using the CCS adapters. And I was already in the Chevron rewards program when I was still driving a gas vehicle, so I had a bunch of rewards points saved up, and it's kind of an insanely good deal because they give you 3 rewards points for every kilowatt hour that you charge. And then once you get 300 points, they give you 20 cents off per kilowatt hour for whatever you charge at that point, which is it doesn't take you that long to get to 300 points, and then you're saving 20 cents per kilowatt hour, meaning it's 9 cents per kilowatt hour at that point to recharge. So I guess at some point I'll be draining it down fairly low and doing a pretty full recharge to make full use of that 20 cents per kilowatt hour savings there. But that's kind of an insanely good deal from Chevron. So that might just be my recharging place of choice from now on.
Very exciting. Everybody is super excited about your electric car.
I mean, it's just saying, for anyone who's really on the fence about it, you're not
living in a big city
option.
Or near a big city like you do. That's right. Make a big difference, though.
Yeah.
If you're living in.
I wasn't aware of how easy and how fast it was going to be, and I'm that little bit of hesitancy I had, I was oh wow, really did not have to worry. But I wasn't fully educated on everywhere that I could recharge, so there you go. It's worth looking into.
All right. So what did you watch, Rob?
Yes, you might think after 2 weeks there'd be more on this list, but I really only watched one movie that I'm going to talk about, which was Bring Her Back. This is, I didn't even know going into it, but yet another A24 feature. It's just like, I am just a gigantic A24 fan without even fully intending to be. It's not like I specifically seek out A24, but a lot of the movies I like are from A24, and this was excellent. This is a horror movie where it's very clear that the makers of this movie set out to create a horror movie that does not rely on jump scares at all. Because, of course, the jump scares are prevalent in a lot of popular horror movies, but this is like, can we make a horror movie that makes the audience like absolutely cringe and feel dread and all of these things without relying on jump scares at all? And they did it. This is like, I guess there's a tiny bit of supernatural in this, but it's very much like in the background. It is not front and center at all. This is, I mean, it's almost a drama if it weren't a horror movie. It's really well done. Starring Sally Hawkins, who is fantastic in this role. I mean, she is the evil in this movie, but she's a human being, and you can totally empathize with where she's coming from. Obviously is making some horrible decisions and doing some truly, truly horrific things, but it's a somewhat sympathetic villain in this movie. And then you've got basically three young actors. Billy Barrett is the oldest. He's supposed to be about 17 or so in this movie, and actually looks about that age. I don't know how old he actually was when they filmed this, but he's not one of these looks like he's 30 years old playing a 17-year-old type of things. Actually looks like an older teenager. And then his is it his stepsister? Yeah, it's his stepsister, played by Sora Wong. She actually is visually impaired in real life and is playing a visually impaired character in this movie, which is sort of key to not exactly the plot, but the whole thing that works around with what the villain is looking for. And then Jonah Wren Phillips, young actor who has, my goodness, is this like a challenging, thankless role that this poor young actor has to go through. Pretty much has no dialogue except for a couple of little whimpered words here and there. But oh my goodness, the amount of like makeup and the horrible situations that they put him through. I'm like, jeez Louise, that was pretty awful. And yeah, I mean, many of the sort of graphically horror things are with his character exclusively. But yeah, the most like just makes me cringe things is just what Sally Hawkins' character is up to. And so yeah, really, really effective. Very, very good as the movie Bring Her Back. You do have to be prepared for, again, I certainly can't say this is like an enjoyable watch because it's very uncomfortable. And it's certainly induced a lot of, I haven't seen that. I've seen a lot of horror movies. I enjoy a lot of horror movies. I haven't seen that many that just viscerally made me react by going, like even the body horror movies, I just kind of like, okay, whatever, they're doing their body horror thing. These ones, I was just like, really, really got me.
One of those ones where you should leave your cell phone out of the room, because if you have it next to you, you're just going to pick it up and look at it just so you get a break from what you're looking at on the screen.
Maybe so, yeah. The sound in this is very good. Predominantly, what you're listening to is rainfall throughout this, which you wouldn't normally think of as a horror movie soundscape, but used to great effect. Yeah, exactly. Used to great effect in this movie. So I don't know. Do I have any criticisms of this movie? I don't think I do. I mean, other than if you're looking to laugh or have a lighthearted time, this clearly isn't it. But yeah, it's not the sort of horror that's like just typical horror at all. It's really well done. It's a horrific situation and pulled off without any jump scares. That's the thing to know about it for sure. So yeah, Bring Her Back. Huge thumbs up from me.
Good. So like I said, my kids have been living in the home theater, so I haven't had a lot of time to be in there. Luckily, the child that was in there for most of the time is the one that's most likely to be gone in the evenings with his friends. So my wife and I, we were able to go in there, or I was able to go in there and watch some stuff. As she and I watched Superman together, which I've already seen in the theaters.
Yeah.
With my son, and I thought, she might like this. And she did. I was kind of worried that the plot was going to be a little bit too complex.
I mean, there's just so many characters that do get thrown at you. Yeah,
there are a lot of characters, but if when I asked her afterwards, I'm like, "Hey, you seem to enjoy that." She said, "Yeah, well, I know Superman.
Okay,
I know Superman's backstory, so I didn't feel like I had to figure anything out." I was like, "Okay, well, that's
Superman and Lex Luthor, which definitely are the main characters." So
yeah, and if you don't really understand who Guy Gardner is, or Hawkgirl, or Metamorpho, or whatever he was called in that movie, Element Man, then that's not important. You just know that there are other people out there.
Yeah.
So she enjoyed it. She liked it. And I liked it better the second time, I'll be honest with you. I felt like I enjoyed it better the second time. There is a reveal in that movie that's supposed to be a twist that you should have seen coming, because just because you put somebody in the black costume doesn't mean you don't know who's underneath that black costume. But when they revealed who it was in the theaters, there was like the music that said, "You should recognize this person." And I remember being in the theaters going, I know who that should be, but it doesn't look like them. And when they cut away and cut back at a different angle, you're like, okay, it looks like them. I get it.
Right.
Now.
Yeah.
But my wife had the exact same reaction. She's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "Just wait a second. You'll figure it out." I watched Fantastic Four, and I also watched Deadpool and Wolverine. They're the two movies I watched.
You're all catching up on the MCU.
I am catching up on the MCU. I do have to watch some. I haven't seen Andor season 2, and there's some other stuff I need to watch.
Okay.
I think there's Spirit of Wakanda or something like that. I think I missed. I don't really know. There's some other animated stuff that
there is some other animated stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic Four. I mean,
I'm interested to hear.
I got to the end. So Rob's not wrong in his criticism of, they kind of tripped Galactus, and that's how they beat him.
They defeated him by pushing.
Which I didn't hate. There's a lot of things I liked about this movie, especially in that they focused on the family dynamic a lot. They focused on the characters a lot. But at the end of it, I was like, where was the character arc for any of these characters?
Yes. Yeah.
There's like, I got to the end of the movie, I was like, did anything happen in this movie?
Did something happen?
I don't remember what you said.
It was strangely inconsequential, is what I described it as.
It was like, I got to the end and I was like, I mean, I don't feel like anybody grew. I don't think anybody changed. I don't feel like there was any character arc for anybody. Like there was like the seeds of it. There's the seeds of it here and there. And yes, the Sue and what's his name? Her husband,
Reed Richards.
Reed Richards fought a little bit, and then they stopped fighting. And that was was that the arc? Did I miss it? There was a baby that was born. The baby happened, and was that the arc?
I mean, Sue certainly got the most to do. Yes, but.
She did, and yes, and Reed's powers were like, we all know these are lame, so let's not even try. I think you should have tried.
Yeah,
you could have done tried a little bit more.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be like an Omega level stretcher duty or whatever. I mean, he's maybe not Omega, but he's certainly one of the I mean, Galactus just goes and stretches him out and throws him away. I'm like, okay, you could have done something with him. So. The movies felt hollow to me, and felt like at the end I was like, this could have been an email. So I wanted to like it. The actors are all great.
I know, yeah,
for the most part. I felt like the Thing was like, I was like, oh, we're gonna have an arc with the Thing. He's gonna get the girlfriend, and it's gonna be interesting. And like, nope.
I mean, they did more with that in the first the Fox Fantastic Four movies. They did more with it in that one. Yeah.
So I was very disappointed. I loved the aesthetic. I loved kind of how they were. They built the whole world and stuff.
Some of the music was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, but you don't get off the spaceship and say, no, we didn't beat the bad guy, and it's because. This is why. You just go, you say something else. I mean, you're supposed to be the smartest person in the world. I'm like, I know that.
I mean, that could have created a character arc.
Could have.
Yeah.
Didn't, but could have. All right, Deadpool and Wolverine. So this was probably of the three movies, the one I was most anticipating. I've been looking forward to this movie. I hadn't watched it in a long time. I was waiting to get the speakers installed and all that and get some subwoofers, but I didn't get any of that stuff. And I was like, I'm just watching the dang thing. So I watched it. And I didn't really like it, I'll be honest with you. I know.
Oh, I'm a little surprised at that.
I didn't really like it. And I'll tell you why. So, the whole idea of having Wolverine back on screen, him spending the entire last two movies just poking fun at Wolverine, having Wolverine show up, getting Hugh Jackman back in the costume, having the actual costume, which felt very much to me like when they gave Daredevil his red costume at the end of season 1, and I went, ooh, don't like it.
Oh, really? Okay. I
mean, the costume itself is fine. It's the helmet that when you put on, it's like his eyes are too wide or something. It's really strange. I didn't like the way it looked. But the real problem I had with this movie is that, well, there's a couple. The main villain is an afterthought. I mean, they're very interesting. They're very powerful.
Wanted a whole lot more of her.
just did not get any. I mean, and the way they look like James McAvoy or whatever his name is. Yeah. It was. I was like, is it him? And they've just like CGI'd him? I mean, I think it's him. She was amazing. She was amazing. I wanted a whole lot more of her.
Yes.
She was inconsequential in this movie. I mean, just barely showed up. And like, we're like told to fear her.
But
we're
was
so
compelling
busy
when she was on screen. So I wanted more. Yeah.
But the real problem I had more than anything, and this really showed up towards the end with, you see it more towards the end, is in the other two Deadpool movies, Deadpool it cracks jokes in inappropriate times because he can't help it. He's just it's a
defense mechanism.
It's a defense mechanism right here, right? But in this movie, many of the things that he does and says are just either mean-spirited or evil. There's no reason for him to do some of the things he does, and even though he explains it as this actor was costing us a lot of money, you're like, okay, I get it, and it may be even more accurate to the comic books than it is to the movie series. But by the end, I was like, I don't think I liked
You're
him
a little
as much
tired
as
of
I
Deadpool?
liked. Well, no, not that I'm tired of Deadpool. I didn't like him as much as I liked him in the other movies.
Yeah.
In the other movies, I liked him because, when it was time to stick up for your friends or to do something, he did that.
Yeah.
And he'd say things like maximum effort, and make fun of the people he was fighting while he was fighting them, but he wasn't ever mean.
Well, I think that certainly goes along with what I was when I reviewed it on this podcast, saying like there is such a distinct lack of his supporting cast. Like it's Deadpool and Wolverine, that's the title, and it really is Deadpool and Wolverine.
And then some of the stuff is like, okay, now we're going to fight each other because it's time to fight each other again, and then now we're friends again. And at the end, Wolverine looks at him and says, "You really something about They would have been lucky to have you," as talking about the Avengers. And I was like, did you just watch the same movie I watched? Because there's no way that man should have been on the Avengers. Are you kidding me? He got so many people killed for like no reason. So no, I wanted there to be a redemption arc for Deadpool by the end of this movie.
I think you needed to somehow work in more of his supporting cast from the previous two movies. I think that's kind of the only way that would have happened. So
the girlfriend, who's the actor's name I can never remember,
Morena Baccarin.
Yes. I just feel like she's so underutilized in these movies. I was so mad in Wolverine 2. I mean, in Deadpool 2, where she just got fridged.
She got fridged for sure.
And I was like so irritated throughout that entire movie about that. But I just chalked that up to Ryan Reynolds or whatever. And I was like, they'll fix it in the next movie. They'll realize their mistake. And she'll be a big part. Because she was just such the heart and soul of the first movie.
That's right.
to just get I didn't like it, and I don't want there to be another Deadpool movie. And if Deadpool was going to be there's some talk about him gluing all the MCU together, him showing up in different movies and stuff like that. I'm like, no, you don't have to do that anymore. You could have done it. You could have done it after Deadpool 2. You could have
see what happens on whatever's coming after Doomsday, right? What's the big Battle World?
I don't remember.
Whatever's going on.
Secret
what do they
Wars?
call it?
Secret Wars.
Secret Wars.
Yeah, I think it is.
Cappy.
I think it is.
Is that the title?
Anyways, and the one thing that you can say that might make it okay is like, well, he wasn't from the same world, because that was sort of the same multiversal world. He's not from the same one as the other Deadpools. I'm like, you're right, but also that doesn't make it any better. I still had to watch over 2 hours of him doing that. So, yeah, I mean, there was parts of it that were certainly fun to watch. There was lots of callbacks and references to things I got and probably things I didn't that I really enjoyed. It is like, the callback the movie or reference, comic book reference the movie is all it is, back and forth, all these little, things in the background and stuff like that. And, that I'm sure, geeks really geek out over, and I am a geek, but I still at the end want to have a character that I can root for. And at the end I was like, someone should absolutely stop him. He absolutely should not be on the Avengers.
Maybe that'll be a plot point in the future.
Maybe. All right. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You come to our website, comment. No, you can't. You cannot comment. You come to our website. You can find our shows, our show notes, links to any products or articles that we'll reference, as well as a link to a Flickr album that'll have all the pictures that we'll be talking about when we answer your questions.
That's right.
We have our old shows there too, as well. avrant.com, facebook.com/avrant podcast, youtube.com/avrant, where you can watch our live recording sessions. One of these days, I'm going to figure out if I have a camera in this house, and this will get better, but the lighting's already better, so we're halfway there.
Yeah.
We got actually 2/3 of the way there, because we've got the sound and the lights, and now all we need is a camera. So, youtube.com. You want to contact us directly, rob@avrant.com. His socials is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. I want to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you do that, go into avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, which will send you to a PayPal donation. Currently, Steve, or most recently, Steve has done that. So thank you very much, Steve.
Yes, thank you, Steve, for that PayPal donation. We really appreciate that financial support.
If you want to support us monthly, you can do that through Patreon, patreon.com/AVRant podcast, where you can sign up to be a monthly contributor. A minimum of $1 will come from you, and most of it will go to us. We currently have 120 patrons because it's a new year.
Yeah, it sure is.
Cards have expired, so check your cards. So we have 120 patrons, including John. So thank you very much to all of our patrons.
Yes, once again, that is patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 120 patrons over there. John, thank you for being one of them.
All right. We also got some notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from Brandon Ash Nathan, who asks, how could we have missed titling our last episode The Two Jays, a la Jack Nicholson's The Two Jakes? I feel like I saw that movie, but I certainly didn't remember it.
We did have 2 J's, though, so yes.
Yeah, we could have done that. Yeah, Henry, Gurinder, Carl, Stan, Paul, Art, Stefan, Scott. And Scott let RBH know he heard about their current Impression Series speakers from us, John and Patrick. So we got notes of gratitude from Brennan, Ash, Nathan, Henry, Gurinder, Carl, Stan, Paul, Art, Stefan, Scott, John, and Patrick. Thank you for thanking us.
Indeed. I'll say the names one more time so they came from my lips. We got Brandon, Ash, Nathan, Henry, Gurinder, Carl, Stan, Paul, Art, Stefan, Scott, John, and Patrick. Thank you all so much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
In the news, CES 2026 is taking place as we speak. It always happens over my anniversary. Mm-hmm. So, as always, given the time when we recorded, we've only seen news for the preview events so far. So there could have been some big news we haven't seen yet. But we can talk about most of the big TV announcements that were on display before CES officially opened. I think I got an email about it. Something that's an NDA right now.
Okay.
But we'll see if that's in here.
It's probably not NDA anymore because CES has definitely started now.
Yeah. To start, the very newest OLED panel tech is only in computer monitors so far, not the big screen TVs. Both LG and LG Display and Samsung Display have developed new RGB stripe OLED panels that are aimed at making text on computer monitors as clear and legible as possible. LG's RGB stripe OLED panels do away with the white subpixel and now use just the three green, red, and blue subpixels. Red, green, and blue subpixels in that order for maximum text clarity. Light output from LG OLEDs has improved enough that they can hit the VESA display HDR True Black 400 spec without the need for the white subpixel thanks to their newest tandem OLED structure. Asus is the first out of the gate with a 27-inch 16:9 LG RGB stripe OLED monitor featuring UHD resolution with a 240 refresh rate. So there you go.
That's right. Yeah. So folks who have been lamenting the use of the white subpixel to boost overall brightness, but resulting in color saturation going down once you get to the very, very bright levels, and then just how having that fourth subpixel, because Windows has never been updated to use anything other than red, green, blue in that order. Otherwise, you get a little bit of color fringing around your pixels. You know, small text, especially colored text on a differently colored background, can often be difficult to read unless your monitor uses RGB in that order. So now that's all been resolved. You got stripe OLED from LG Display, RGB, no white subpixel, and red, green, blue in that order. So text should look very clear.
And over on the Samsung Display side of things, they've released their V-Stripe RGB QD-OLED panels. So quantum dot makes them better.
That's right. QD is quantum dot.
You might recall the previous QD-OLED panels had their red, green, and blue subpixels arranged in a triangular pattern. With the V-Stripe, they are now vertical lines of red, green, and blue in that order, with the red being the tallest, then green, then blue being the shortest. So the V-Stripe name describes the shape in two ways.
Yeah, because V for vertical, it's vertical stripes, but then it's also like kind of this sideways V shape that's going on because you got a tall red stripe and then a slightly shorter green stripe and then an even shorter blue stripe. So it makes a kind of a greater than symbol.
So Asus and MSI are both releasing 34-inch 3440 by 1440 resolution, 21 by 9 aspect ratio curved monitors featuring these new V-Stripe QD OLED panels. They hit VESA Display HDR True Black 500 spec and feature a 360 hertz frame refresh rate. They also get the newest black shield film to reduce QD OLED washout under ambient room lighting. So there's a little, if you're looking at the YouTube video or the Flickr album, you'll see it. You should be seeing on your screen an example of what this all means.
Yep, you can see the V-stripe pattern, and you can see the LG stripe OLED before that. So yeah, it's I'm happy to see these advancements. They're certainly addressing some criticisms that people have had of OLED monitors for quite some time now. And that new what's the brand name for it? The Black Shield thing. Seeing some of the early previews that have been done on it, it's effective. It's like, wow, that QD OLED finally doesn't wash out under lights. It's not perfect inky black, but it is noticeably better than it used to be. So I really wouldn't have any problem using a QD OLED under ambient room lighting conditions as long as it has that new Black Shield film.
Hisense is all in on RGB mini LED backlit LCD TVs. They were the first brand to release RGB mini LED TV. First one to release one last year in the form of their flagship 116-inch 116 UX. But in 2026, they'll bring RGB mini LEDs to their less expensive UR9S and UR8S series in screen sizing ranging from 55 to 100. Those are inches, not centimeters. Right. They're also going to have the new 116-inch flagship, the 116 UXS.
They added an S onto the end of it.
Just the S at the end. That model gets their brand new RGB mini-LED Evo system that adds a fourth subpixel. So it uses red, green, blue, and cyan. Remember how popular that yellow pixel was for a while?
Well, funnily enough, they're adding that to their actual mini LED modular displays. They're going to have red, green, blue, yellow in those, but it's red, green, blue, cyan in the RGB mini LED Evo backlight system. Yeah, nothing confusing about these names, but there you go.
Hisense is also the biggest backer of Dolby Vision 2 when it comes to the major TV brands this year. So there you go. TCL surprised everybody a little bit, not entirely, since they did announce their version of RGB mini LED backlit LCD TVs in the form of their RM9L series that they say will be launching this spring. But their focus was mainly on their new flagship tech, which they're calling SQD-miniLED, with the SQD standing for Super Quantum Dot. Rob?
Yup.
There's a super quantum dot?
There's a super quantum dot now, Tom. That's exactly what's going on.
Is that what makes it super? It's not
actually, it's smaller. it's even smaller, and they've kind of like put the whole thing inside of sort of a rounded lens. So again, you're making sure that more of that light is coming out exactly where you want it. There's less scattering. There's less bleed across subpixels. So yeah, it's more precise.
As soon as you buy a quantum dot TV, somebody comes out with a super quantum dot. Like in a minute that you buy it. God, I got screwed.
That's right.
The new X11L flagship series, as well as the new QM8L and even the QM7L series, will be going with a super quantum dots, not RGB mini LED backlighting. This X11L will have 20,000 zones of local dimming. Remember when there used to be 5?
I mean, I certainly remember like 8. I remember when like getting over 30 was a big deal.
There's 20,000 zones of local dimming and full 10,000 nit peaks coming in at 85 inches and 98-inch screen sizes. TCL says they're also planning to support Dolby Vision 2, but that will require a firmware update later this year. And we know what we say about that.
That's right.
Don't buy things based on promised firmware updates.
Hisense has it from the jump, so yeah, they were the most bullish about Dolby Vision 2 was Hisense. But TCL's like, yep, we'll have it.
Nits. What do you need Dolby Vision 2 for?
You can do stuff nit for nit. But now it's going to be that 1,000 nit content. We're gonna. I don't even know what the term for it is, but like reverse tone map it to fill up all 10,000 nits, I guess.
LG pre-announced their take on RGB micro, which is smaller than mini.
Yeah, micro is smaller than mini. It has to be under 100 nanometers to be micro.
All right. So they have the RGB micro LED backlighting, and we covered that last week at CES. Yeah. It was all about their newest OLEDs, and if you still have one of their OLEDs from 2016, be prepared for some model name confusion. Oh, good. As LG decided to just continue on with their naming convention, but no, your 2016 C6 is not magically same as the new 2026 C6, unfortunately.
Yes.
They're just going to keep every 10 years. It's like, what?
So, I mean, I really did think that they would call it like the C26. Would that be so insane to call it the C26? But they're like, nope, it's still the C6, but it's not the 2016 C6, it's the 2026 C6.
So there'll be a new B6 series. They weren't showing that off, but it was being used as the baseline so they can compare how much brighter all the other OLED series are. So they're comparing their new B6 to their new Cs and Gs and stuff. And
that's right.
It seems like a weird way to flex on your own product, but whatever. So the new regular C, I guess regular is highlighted. So I mean italicized. So there must be something.
There's something coming,
anyways.
Yes.
The new regular C6 series is nothing particularly exciting, but there's a new C6H series. The C6H only comes in 77 and 83-inch sizes. The regular C6 ranges from 42 up to 83. Okay.
Yep.
And the C6H gets a new tandem OLED panels. Essentially, C6H has the same performance as last year's G5 series, but at a lower price.
And in case you're wondering, the H stands for Hyper Radiant Color Tech. I don't know why they needed a whole new thing. Its tandem OLED was already a new thing they introduced last year, and you could have just said, it could have called it a C6T for C6 tandem OLED, but nope, it's hyper radiant color tech. That's going to be in the C6H, but only at the 77-inch and the 83-inch screen sizes specifically. So you got to want to go big in order to get the
there
tandem
could,
OLED.
in theory, be an 83-inch and a 77-inch C6 next to a C6H.
Correct.
And you could accidentally grab the wrong box.
That is a possibility. I don't know exactly for sure what's going to be coming out in every region, but that's how I understood that.
All right. The G6 series gets the newest tandem OLED 2.0 panels. LG says it gets 3.9 times brighter. Why don't you just round it up to 4?
I know, right?
Almost 4 times brighter than the B6 as a result. They've also improved the anti-reflective coating, and they're sticking with the glossy screen finish. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And the big flashy announcement was the return of their wallpaper OLED. That was the thing I got today, by the way.
Of course.
I didn't want to say that. Series in the form of the W6. W6 is taking the place of the M series this year. It's exactly the same idea, using LG's Zero Connect box. So the only wire going to the TV itself is its power cord, but the B6 is super thin.
W6, that should say.
W6, sorry. 9.9 millimeters to be exact. I'm pretty sure that I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure the thing said 9 millimeters. They rounded down on that one, but they can't round up on the other one.
Whatever it is, it's under a centimeter, which is insane. That is crazily thin. I mean, it's not unreasonable to call this thing a wallpaper OLED.
Yeah. There's a whole new mounting system to make it as flush to the wall as possible. Unlike the original wallpaper OLEDs that came out years ago, there's no mandatory sound bar this time, just the thinnest OLED possible and the wireless Zero Connect box, which is also smaller this year. And LG was showing off how you can put it into a cabinet now without the signal dropping out. Also, no Dolby Vision 2 support from LG this year, and no HDMI 2.2 yet either. So there you go. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. You had to buy speakers separately now.
Well, no, that's not actually true. It does still have sound.
Does it make sound?
It has sound that comes out of it somehow. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but
does it come out of the box? There's a speaker in the box, one full range speaker. They'll call it a subwoofer. Samsung. Remember how we just commented that about LG's OLEDs still having glossy screens? Well, that's because Samsung decided to go all in their matte screen finish this year. You can basically say if you want matte, go Samsung. If you want glossy, go LG at this point.
Yeah.
Both the new S95H QD-OLED and the S90H OLED series are getting matte screens this year. Furthermore, I could have gotten a matte screen. Rob. Furthermore, the S95H...
I'm not a fan.
Furthermore, the S95H is going to be a real love it or hate it situation because it now comes with an art frame around it that is not removable. Oh, Lord help us.
I know.
S95H does get kind of a cool new option. The One Connect box is no longer the default, so the S95H now has 4 HDMI 2.1 ports built right into the TV, but you have the option of paying extra to add the wireless One Connect box. We're still certain they're so mad at LG for trademarking the Zero Connect box name before they did. If you add on the wireless One Connect box, you get an additional 4 HDMI 2.1 inputs, so you really can have 8 HDMI devices all plugged into the TV this way, and that's kind of cool. So there's already a receiver in the TV built in. You just have to buy the box separately to transmit it, is what I'm hearing, right?
So yeah, like there's the separate box, which is the actual wireless One Connect box, and then there's like a card that plugs into the TV itself. They have a slot for a proprietary card that you plug in there, and there's the wireless connection between the separate box with the additional 4 HDMI 2.1 ports on the separate box, and then it transmits to the card that you plug in.
So you don't have to use one of your HDMI ports on the TV to connect like a dongle or something.
You end up with 8 functioning HDMI ports, which that's kind of interesting. It's a thing. Yeah. I'm not sure I would take the stupid looking frame in order to have it, but I mean, I prefer to have be able to put my speaker right up to the bottom edge of my TV if I want to, and you can't when there's a honking metal frame around it.
So less cool is that aside from now only coming in a matte screen finish, the S90H series appears to have dropped the quantum dots this year. Well, I'm glad I got it when I could.
That's right.
It's listed as being all WOLED panels from LG Display now. So yeah, if you want matte, go Samsung. If you want glossy, go LG. Samsung was also showing their RGB microLED TVs, including the literally biggest news at the show. There's the R95H series that will span screen sizes from 55 inches up to 98 inches, but the literal big news was the A95H flagship series. Well, there are 65, 75, and 85-inch models. Nobody cares about those. CES was all about the massive 130-inch model. It's the first to use the 130-inch LCD panels manufactured by TCL CSOT at their 11G factory. My brain is trained to mush reading all these numbers and letters. I can't do it, Rob. We need less news or more words. This is it. Like I start to see double. I get dyslexic. It's really hard.
Display panel factories are measured in generations that they just call G.
I remember. I know.
They had their 8.5 G. This is TCL CSOT, which is their actual manufacturing arm for the LCD panels. They had their 8.5 G factory, but in 2014 they opened up a G11 factory, 11G factory, 11th generation factory. That's where they've been making the 115-inch panels, which we've been seeing all over the place for the past couple of years. And they've been cutting 2 of those out of that 11G panel, but they showed how if you orient the cut horizontally instead of vertically, they could actually make 130-inch panels with almost no waste at all to that mother glass. Yeah.
I mean, so I have really high ceilings, which means I have really high doors, which means I am one of the few people that could actually shoehorn in a 130-inch screen. Now, I don't know that I could get her around a corner in order to get it into a bedroom.
That would be a challenge. This is not modular.
But I could definitely put it in the main room.
This is not flexible. This is one gigantic rectangle.
So the huge size of the mother glass means they can cut 230-inch panels with almost no wasted glass, as Rob said. So while no MSRP was given for the 130-inch Samsung, it wouldn't necessarily be an astronomical jump over their 115-inch model. I mean, what's the 115? It's like 20 grand or something.
So this 130-inch RGB micro LED from Samsung. You've got 2 options for how you view this thing. They include what they call their timeless stand, which is an easel type of stand, some big legs that kick out the back. This actually is a very, very flat television. It has no bump outs on the TV itself, and they have a whole bunch of, those are actually fairly sizable drivers on the back to produce some bass out of this thing. The speakers, as far as I know, though, like the treble and vocal speakers and that, they're built into either that timeless frame or the other option if you want to wall mount it. You can't just mount this thing straight to the wall. It has they call it a layered wall system where you attach this sort of slatted, or they have other designs, sort of wood-like looking frame to the wall itself, and then the 130-inch mounts to that. And part of that is because the speakers are built into those side parts of the layered wall frame, and then those bass drivers on the back of the actual panel itself are still producing the bass for the sound system, so they need some kind of small cavity behind them when you mount it on the wall for all of that to work. So not to mention, part of this is just the sheer weight of this thing. So rather than relying on any sort of traditional VESA wall mount, they're like, nope, you attach this layered wall system to the wall first, spanning, I think, at least 3 studs is like the requirement, because this is a big, heavy, necessarily stiffened television that you're dealing with here. So 130 inches, it exists. I wondered aloud on podcast episodes last year whether we would see the 130-inch LCDs, because back in 2024, TCL CSOT did that whole presentation where they're like, we can make 130s. That's a thing we could do without the price being insane, because we actually could cut 2 of those panels from one piece of mother glass. They also said it's possible, like if they just went for the maximum single-sized piece that they could cut from that 11G glass, I think it was 148 inches is the maximum diagonal that they could cut, but you could only cut 1 of those out of the mother glass, and you'd end up with a whole bunch of waste if they did that. So that would be a very expensive television. But the 130, I mean, a lot of the added cost is going to be just how do you package and ship ship this thing without it bending or cracking or breaking. So this is purely a guess on my part. I'm going to guess that Samsung prices this thing at $60,000. I'm guessing they price it at double the price of their RGB micro LED 115-inch model, which came out with MSRP of $30,000. So that's purely my guess. But even that, if you're thinking like, we haven't had a 30-inch 4K display that you could just buy before. This isn't modular, and that is still quite a bit less expensive than the modular versions, even if they price it there. But going by what TCL has said about manufacturing costs, like maybe it'll be under $50,000. That's not out of the question.
I mean, you start looking at projectors that are. I mean, I know for a 130-inch screen, you don't need a super powerful, top of the line projector
you could do a JVC, you could do an Epson, you could do a Sony for sure.
Yeah. So, but if you're looking for the kind of performance that you could get out of an OLED at 130 inches, that price doesn't look that bad.
I mean, this isn't an OLED. It's a RGB micro LED backlit LCD, but
I mean, it's got at least 4 zones of local dimming too.
It's quite a few more than that, yes.
Comments. Infinite Gary, before the holiday break, Gary mentioned how the oldest piece of gear he has that is still in regular use is this Technics SH4020 audio timer from 1985. Rob guessed it correctly. It's for use for tape decks. He puts it between his Polk XM radio tuner and his Nakamichi RX505 tape deck to allow for unattended recordings.
He's excited about it.
I can see that. Yes. And there's a speaker on top of it. Is that like a
something like that?
Or something? I don't know. It looks like maybe 2 speakers. I think it's 2 speakers that are right on top of it. Anyways, Scott appreciate our advice about which new speakers, subwoofer, and AV receiver to get for his office setup. Rob again guessed correctly. Stop. You wrote these. Stop patting yourself on the back. Scott has been putting together systems for many years now, and he's just curious to try something a little bit different than he hasn't already owned before. So that end, he wound up ordering a pair of our BH Impression 85i towers in white with the matching 55i center also in white. It was worth calling them on the phone to order because they were able to offer some helpful setup advice, and they gave him the Black Friday discount even though he was calling after that sale that ended online. He was going to take our advice and get the RSL Speedwoofer 10 S Mark II in white, but they were sold out when he went to order, so he went and got an SVS PB1000 Pro in white instead. He does love being able to use the app, so he's fine having spent more for it. Lastly, he got an Onkyo RZ30 receiver at a great price, so he's eager to try out Dirac and compare the Onkyo interface with his other receivers from different brands.
Yeah.
He ordered some other odds and ends as well, so once everything has arrived and he's set it all up, he intends to take some photos and share his impressions of everything. So I can't wait to see it.
I can't imagine you being disappointed with any of those purchases. Those are all fantastic products. When I checked today, the RSL Speedwoofer 10S Mark IIs were back in stock, both black and white, but they're always limited stock. They're always selling out of those things, so they can never seem to keep them in stock for terribly long. But I think you'll be very happy with everything you purchased.
Nelson, before our New Year's break, Nelson asked us which display he should get to replace his JVC NX5 projector that he was using with a 120-inch screen. You want a 130-inch screen?
Right.
And you have $60,000 bullet for
it's
50 to 60,000.
The 130 inch is going to cost more than what he spent. That I am very confident in saying.
He's been toying with the idea of getting a 115-inch TCL QM7K, but Rob suggested the QM891G from 2024 still has the better picture. He was also considering going way down in screen size to 98-inch, but then he going to a higher series since he'd be able to afford it. Rob said to stick with the QM8K series if he went down to 98 inches. And then he was also looking at new projector models. So what did he do? He got the 98-inch TCL QM8K, and he's really happy with it.
He also saved a ton of money with that choice.
Yeah. He did the math, and by putting it on the stand so that it's 22 inches closer than his wall-mounted 120-inch projection screen, the field of view is the same, but now he has completely black blacks and in his dedicated darkened theater, and of course it's way brighter. He has he already had curtains to either side of his projection screen, and leaving those in place, they nicely frame the TV and visually trick you into thinking the screen size is just as big. So who could have ever guessed, except for literally us?
And actually, in the photo that he sent, he still had his projection screen mounted on there, so you can see it just poking back there. It was mounted just ever so slightly higher, but he's like, yeah, you pull it not even 2 feet closer, 22 inches closer, and there you go. It's like it's shockingly not a giant downgrade in the field of view that he's looking at there. So he's like, yeah, those are some...
Actually looks slightly bigger.
That's right. Those are some bright, high contrast, pure black images on that. I mean, that's only mini LED. That we're not RGB micro LEDs lighting up that QM8K. But no, it's a fantastic TV. And like I said, personally, my opinion on it is that it's just flat out better than the more expensive QM9K. It's more accurate. It's objectively the more accurate TV. So why spend $1,000 or $2,000 more, in my opinion? So there you go. He's really happy with it. I'm very happy with that, and fantastic. Congrats.
JR recently replaced... Okay, these are questions. Sorry,
yes.
I should have said that. I just am desperate to get to a point in the question where I can stand up and stretch my back a little bit.
You can anytime, man.
I know, but I'm trying to make it make sense here. Anyways, JR recently replaced his Denon X3700H receiver with an Arcam AV41 Pre-Pro. He was already running a 7.2.4 speaker configuration before, so that has not changed. He continues to use his Sonos Faber Maxima Amateur. Okay, I know I asked for words instead of letters, but make them actual words.
I mean, those are. It's just not English words.
Front, left, and right towers, along with Sonos Faber Maxima Amateur, I guess. Front, left, and right towers, along with the Sonos Faber Sonetto, center and surrounds. His surround backs are a pair of Mirage bookshelf speakers. Thank you. His front, left, and right towers are powered by a Macintosh Max 7200 stereo receiver running in bypass mode, and his other 5 floor-level speakers are powered by a Rotel RMB 1095 5-channel amp. His 4 overhead speakers are SVS Prime Elevations. Thank you. Make the actual words that make sense. The Denon used to power those itself, but with this new Arcam Pre-Pro, he added a Emotiva Basax A4 4-channel amp. His subwoofers are a pair of SVS PC2000 Pro cylinder subs that, on our advice, are positioned at the midpoints of his 2 sidewalls. When he was using his Denon, both subs were connected to a single sub out using a Y splitter. His room is enclosed. It's not quite a perfect rectangle because it's a bit narrower at the back. And the ceiling is also lowered in the middle to cover overhead ductwork. Plus, there's a support column. Whatever. He's got floor-to-ceiling corner base traps in the front 2 corners, plus smaller base traps above his TV and up high on the back wall. So he's got base traps, corners above his TV and up high on the back wall. 4-inch thick absorption panels treat the sidewall and ceiling first reflection points, and then he has combo panels on his front wall behind his main speakers and combo panels on his back wall as well. It's a very nice looking theater.
It's very nice.
You can see it here. You can see it.
The acoustic treatments seem very reasonable to me.
That's right. There's 2 rows? There's 2 rows.
That's going to be described in just a second.
Okay. So first up, he started by running Dirac Live room correction for the first time with his subs still wired off a single sub out using his Y splitter. Overall, he was impressed with the sound quality, but he thought it sounded a little bit muddy right in the crossover region between his subs and speakers. He got too curious to wait for a reply, so he went ahead and purchased the Dirac Live bass control upgrade that was available for his Arcam AV41. He found that it took some serious tweaking, and he even relied on the help of some AI chatbots to get it dialed in. Good luck. Initially, they're also in love with you, by the way. Initially, it wanted to run its front towers full range, but with a significant boost below 40 hertz.
Yup.
Don't do that. And strangely, it wanted to roll off his subs below 30 hertz despite measuring that they had plenty of headroom to play lower. What?
Fantastic automated setup there. You still got to keep an eye on it.
But after manually changing some of those settings, it seemed to really be dialed in, and he thinks it sounds fantastic now. The bass sounds much more cohesive and is noticeable improvement over how things used to sound with his Denon. And he's hearing more separation between instruments, so he's happy with the purchase and the Dirac upgrades.
Okay.
So he's curious what Dirac Art would add to the experience, though he knows that Art did not appear to be an available upgrade for his Arcam AV41 when he went to buy the base control upgrade on their website. Could we just talk a bit more about what the various levels of Dirac purport to do? Have we used them? I have not, but I'm gonna use some of them.
Yeah.
And what have our experiences been like? So we've talked about Art before, the active room treatment.
And let's say it right up front. Neither of us has actually used Dirac Art in our own system, so we are not speaking from personal experience about Dirac Art. I just want to make that clear.
Right. From what we have read and the reports we have read and other things, Dirac Art really seems to be focused on fixing egregious rooms as much as can be done.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's focused on. It's just that is where people who have used it have noticed the most clearly audible difference. And that makes a ton of sense. If you're thinking about what is the name active room treatment, then the whole idea is that in lieu of passive treatments, you're using active room treatments. And where are you going to audibly notice room treatments of any kind? Well, it's in a situation where you really need to bring some decay times under control. And where are you going to need to bring decay times under control? Well, in a room that has some longer decay times, which is not going to be a room that's already enclosed and acoustically treated. So, I mean, all of that is to say, kind of jumping ahead, like my guess is that in your room, which is a dedicated, enclosed, and nicely acoustically treated room with some very nice large bass traps in those corners, very happy to see those, but then very reasonable treatments that are not overly thin. These are 4-inch thickness at minimum for the rest, and that ceiling is actually fairly heavily treated, so I don't think you probably have any problems with floor ceiling bounce going on in there. Like the prediction I would have is that if you went to Dirac Art, I don't predict it would make a world of difference in your room unless you took all those treatments down. If you were eager to take all the treatments in a room down, well, then I would bet it would make an audible difference. But yeah, chances are, if it were even an option, it's not. On the Arcam model that you have, upgrading it to Dirac Art is not even an option. But in case you're worrying that you're missing out, I feel quite comfortable in predicting, again, I can't base it off of personal experience, but I feel quite comfortable in predicting that it would not be some kind of gigantic upgrade for you in your room with your nicely appointed and treated room.
So with the previous setup, using
we should just in full go through the rest of it, because he was like, could we just talk a bit about the various
you do that.
levels?
I'm going to go.
Yes, that was my idea. So with Dirac Live room correction. So you've got the two different versions of that. There's Dirac Live room correction limited bandwidth, which will do equalization. That is what it's doing. It's I'm not going to say basic, but it is FIR filter based, so finite impulse response filter based equalization, electronic equalization. And in the limited version of it, it's going from the deepest bass up to, I believe it's 500 hertz where they cut that off. And then there's Dirac Live room correction full bandwidth, which of course goes from below 20 hertz to above 20 kilohertz. But that is FIR filter based equalization. So it means they have a target, they have a preset target. You can manually tailor and edit what you want that target response to be, but then it is using FIR filters to try and make the individual frequency response of each speaker and subwoofer equal to the target response that is either, left alone, their default target response, or the one that you've tailored yourself. But it is not doing anything beyond FIR filter-based equalization. So in that way, Dirac Live room correction is not some wildly different magical technology or anything like that. It is very editable. You can edit what you want that target curve to be, but it is the same idea. You set a target curve, you measure the speakers individually. They are doing multiple microphone positions, so you can have a spatial average. That's the idea, that you're not measuring from a sole microphone position and therefore potentially making one seat better while making a different seat worse. You measure in multiple microphone positions, it sums those together, creates a spatial average, and then attempts to equalize each speaker and subwoofer individually to match the target curve. Dirac Live bass control is something I like very much. It's Dirac's version of a multi-sub optimizer and includes the front, left, and right speakers as part of that. So what it's doing is it's still measuring each speaker and subwoofer individually, but then it is attempting to calculate the sum of all subwoofers, which can be individually equalized, plus the front, left, and right speakers, which can also be individually equalized, so that once you sum all of that equalization together, you end up with nice bass response. So yeah, it's very much similar to the multi-sub optimizer that's going on there, but it's a automated version of it. And what I like about that is that, you know, when we're talking about Odyssey, how it handles like what it does for delays or phase settings, it's just basing that purely on time arrival, which the Dirac Live room correction does as well. It just sends out a ping from each speaker or sub and says, okay, how long did it take between when I sent the signal versus when that arrived at the microphone, and just uses that delay to calculate the positions. And then it just tries to make all of the arrival times equal. Simple as that. That doesn't always result in the most cohesive bass response. You have multiple different things in your room producing bass frequencies at the same time. Those arrival times could be different from different sources, but just summing and making all of the arrival times the same does not guarantee that the summed response at the listening positions is actually optimal. And that could be the reason why when you did just room correction first, or even going back to Odyssey, you're like, I always had this little bit of muddiness right in that crossover region, right between where my tower speakers are crossing over to my subwoofers, that never sounded quite perfect. And then when I upgraded to Dirac Live bass control, it's like, it really sounds cohesive now. I don't have that muddiness anymore. That could absolutely be the difference between arrival time calculation versus actually calculating, okay, what do I need the specific equalization and phase and time response to all be summed together so that that works out to equal my target curve? And that's exactly what Dirac Live bass control does. So yeah, ART is a very different thing. That is saying, okay, we're actually trying to get delay times under control by utilizing speakers other than the channel that's playing right now. There might only be sound in the signal from my front left speaker channel, but I'm actually going to play sound out of all of my speakers to try and do sort of like a little bit like how active noise cancellation kind of works. We're not actually trying to fully cancel things out, but it's that similar idea of having sound coming from more than one source, so that again it sums together at your seat in a way that matches the target curve rather than relying on just one sound producing device. So that's the various levels.
All right. With his previous setup using this Denon receiver, he was never happy with the music playback. It sounds as though he was doing it without Odyssey, as I think Rob kind of touched on a second ago. Mm-hmm. For dedicated two-channel listening, he was not using his Denon at all. He has a Lumen U1 Mini dedicated streaming device. He fed that into a Denafrips Pontus R2R outboard DAC, which he then fed to a separate Macintosh room correction and bass management box, which then output to his Macintosh Mac 7200 stereo receiver and his pair of subs. Well, that's convoluted, but all right.
Yes.
I mean, it's not. It's just it's a straight line, but it's still a lot to do just for stereo listening. For multi-channel music and Atmos, he was forced to use a Denon, but he said it always sounded fatiguing, brittle, and harsh, all of which he attributed to the DACs built into the Denon.
Right.
Definitely not.
We're going to have a comment about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So now he's got his new Arcam, and despite all the changes he's made, he's still under the impression that it's specifically the ESS Saber DACs it has built in that are responsible for how good it sounds with music. Whether it be two-channel, multi-channel, or Atmos music, all streaming directly from the Arcam now, as its own source device for music streaming, he thinks it sounds fantastic. So he's thinking he could radically simplify his setup and recoup the cost of his upgrades by selling all of his dedicated two-channel gear. He'd also opt to replace the Macintosh stereo receiver, which is a two-channel amp, if he went this route. But that has him a little concerned about as to how his 12-volt trigger connections would go. With his old Denon X3700H setup, he relied on his daisy chain connection, since his Mac 7200 stereo receiver had its own 12-volt triggers. But if he replaces that with just a two-channel amp, he'd like to only power on that two-channel amp when listening to stereo music, while leaving his other two amplifiers powered off. And then for multi-channel, the other two amps should power on. Is there a simple way to achieve that? I mean, okay. I understand people wanting to do this.
Sure.
But I bet that if we sat down and did the math of how much power you're using or saving, you'd be like, oh, this is definitely not worth it.
There's a pretty simple way to do what he wants, though, so I don't see why not.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, your Arcam AV41 has two 12-volt trigger outputs. I am not familiar enough to know if you set it to say stereo listening mode, if you can get it to trigger just one or tell the other one to power off. But what you can definitely do is have one of those 12 trigger outputs on the Arcam respond to the main zone, and then another one respond to zone 2. And right. I'm not saying that you actually need to utilize zone 2. I'm just saying because of that, you could have your stereo amp that's powering just your front, left, and right speakers, have that connected to the trigger output that you say only activates with zone 2. And now all you have to do is power zone 2 on or off, and there it is. That's your front, left, and right. And then when you want to use the others, you make those the main channel trigger. Or you could do it vice versa. If you're like, I want to be in my main zone when I'm listening to 2-channel, you say, okay, that one only triggers my 2-channel amplifier. And then I'm going to turn on zone 2 and trigger the other 12-volt trigger. That's going to power up my other multi-channel amplifiers. I'm not actually using the zone 2 pre-outs to power those. It's purely just for the trigger. The pre-outs are actually coming from the main zone. That's still going to function just fine. So that's an easy way that you can do this if you're like, yeah, I only need to power on my multi-channel amps. Sometimes you connect them to the zone 2 12-volt trigger on the back of the Arcam, and now you just simply power on zone 2. Nothing actually connected to zone 2, but that sends out the 12-volt trigger signal, and they're still connected to the preamp outputs for the main zone. That'll totally work. So yeah, with that actual question out of the way, I mean, we got to respond a little bit to attributing all of this to the DACs. I was a little bit surprised because I was like, you're clearly familiar with a lot of audio gear. How you came to the determination that out of all of those variables, like you've changed amplifiers, you've changed the entire preamp, you've changed the decoding, you've changed your room correction. Like, how out of all of those changes did you come to the conclusion that it's the DACs that made the audible difference? I don't know if that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It really did not come across as tongue-in-cheek at whatsoever in his email, so I was taking that at face value. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that, like, maybe when he had that whole 2-channel arrangement before, maybe he didn't have that separate outboard DAC at one point, and then when he added that to the signal chain, that's when he thought he heard the difference that made the difference. But, like, honestly, what you were describing with the Denon, in music listening mode sounding, kind of harsh or brittle or something like that, it's like, well, I was making a little bit of assumption here, but it certainly sounded like he wasn't using the Odyssey correction when he was doing music listening. I'm like, well, that could definitely make an audible difference, right? You've got the Odyssey correction on while you're listening to movies, and you never thought those sounded harsh and brittle, but then you turn that off when listening to music, and it sounds kind of harsh and brittle. Like, that's not the digital to analog converter. That you changed your equalization, you changed your room correction. Or it could also be that by default, Odyssey targets a pretty darn, like, actually flat line as its target for equalization. And there's plenty of evidence, even including going back to before Odyssey, right, when Floyd Toole was studying this stuff, that the in-room target should probably be a bit of a downward slope. Not nearly as steep a slope as I've seen many people do with, like, crazy bass boosts, but, like, a kind of, what does it end up being like? Well, pretty much 1.5 decibels per octave type of a slope. So pretty, shallow slope, but a slope nonetheless. And Dirac by default targets something very close to that. They're kind of calling it Harman curve now. It was never really meant to be that, but in the colloquial language, that's what it's targeting. So the idea that just by default, if you hadn't made any manual changes to any target curves, you find Dirac a little bit more pleasing to your ears than Odyssey, that's not really a gigantic surprise. Like a lot of the previous research and evidence has suggested that that's what you should be experiencing. So yeah, none of that points to the digital analog converters. That's not what's responsible here. But with all of the other changes that you made, including Dirac's target frequency response by default, what you're describing makes sense. The end result totally makes sense to me. And yeah, I mean, this is us. This is Tom and Rob from AVRant. Like, we would absolutely be in favor of, yes, just use the exceedingly good multi-channel pre-pro that you now have with your very good amplification. There's no need for other gear for when you're specifically listening to 2-channel or to multi-channel music or to Atmos music. Like, by all means, you can use your Arcam and your existing amplifiers to listen to music. It's crazy to think that in a system like this, somehow it's good for movies, but not for music. That doesn't make a lick of sense, and it's not the
and
DAC.
dentists have that nasty habit of not habit but feature of having different settings from 2-channel as or stereo a stereo input.
Although
than they do for
what did he say
things.
you had before? You had a 3700H before, right? So that did not have that. It's the 4000 series and ups that has the separate 2-channel. But purely Odyssey on versus off could have been enough to do this.
Yeah, that's true.
There's
a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of ways that could have happened.
Yeah. And I understand. I see people misattribute things all the time. I do it myself, you know. Yeah, and I in fact, I was just as I was painfully walking through this house, trying to stretch my back out. I was like, man, I wish that I believed in chiropractic, or I wish I didn't have all the evidence I have about some of these alternative medicine treatments, because I would just love some relief, even if it was only a placebo effect, even if it was only the belief, I wish I could do that. And it's hard because, you, for whatever reason, you make a connection between two things, and it's hard to tell your brain, no, that's not it. Logically, I know it's not it.
Right.
And in this case, I have been saying, and not just me, but many people in the high-end audio industry who aren't trying to sell snake oil have been saying for literal decades that DACs don't make an audible difference, that they are a solved technology. I've been saying that for decades.
It could, we can't say on a technical level that it's impossible for it to make a difference. It could, but it's just, they've gotten so they're a commodity at this point. And other than having DACs that support insane bit depths and sampling frequencies that are completely unnecessary, that can be a thing where one DAC supports, whatever the crazy numbers are, 36-bit and 768 kilohertz, which, there are some that just don't support, that are also totally unnecessary. I would like my DAC to support, 24-bit audio and at least 48 kilohertz because Blu-rays use that, right? So I would like them to support that format, and probably not less, but even that is not necessary on an audible sense of things. But just in terms of, there can be measurable differences in minuscule amounts of distortion that some DACs add that others don't. But blind listening comparisons definitely point to that not being something that you can detect on any sort of reliable basis.
Yeah. Ryan has owned both a LG C6H OLED and the Epson 5050 UB projector for several years. A recent move forced him to sell the Epson, but back when he had both, he could easily point to the OLED's black levels and stunning colors and identify that they are objectively better. The Epson's image was obviously much bigger, and that clearly plays a role, but for movie watching, he couldn't help but prefer
that should be seeing,
seeing with the projector, even with its black levels and contrast clearly being worse than his OLEDs. Is there any way to actually quantify that? So he preferred the larger picture, even though it wasn't as good objectively in the black levels as the smaller OLED. So is there any way to quantify that? Is it just nostalgia? He did grow up watching films in theaters, but he still enjoys a lot of classic films in black and white. Somehow those just feel right on a projector more than they do on an OLED. Does it have to do with reflected light versus direct light? So there is the size. I think that's the one objective difference
Which
here.
Even if you say, yes, I'm aware of that, I'm not going to pay attention to it, it's one of those things that you can't ignore. Just like how if you're saying, I know there's a difference in how the bass sounds between these two speakers, but I'm going to ignore that and only pay attention to the mid-range and treble. It's like, nope, you can't. It doesn't matter how aware you are, your brain just cannot make that ignore on a conscious basis.
And I don't know if these two sets were in the same room. These two setups were in the same room, but they're is also a difference there. If they're not, if the seats are different, the lighting condition is different, the sound is different, everything's different. So let's pretend though that you are in a theater that has the exact same, you're sitting in your seat and you can switch seamlessly between an equal size projection screen and an equal size OLED.
Okay.
And is it possible that you prefer one over the other, the projector over the OLED, even though objectively the image on the OLED is better than the image on the projector?
Sure.
I think that there are arguments that you can make, and there are people who will die on a hill saying that the projector is better. There is the type of projector that you have, the DLP versus the OLED, the type of image that you're getting on the screen, the emotion can look different. There is also, as you called it, the nostalgia factor.
Sure.
But I would say that it's more like listening to your favorite music with your favorite headphones for a very long time and then getting better headphones and going, I don't like it as much.
Okay.
You know what I mean? There's something about that familiarity that you had that when you're A-Bing back and forth, you're like, that is not what I like. That's not the way it's supposed to sound. That's not the way, in this case, it's supposed to look. It's supposed to look a certain way. It's always looked a certain way. Now you're making it look different.
Right.
And different is many times initially viewed as being bad. Now, if you said live with a projector for a month, now live with the OLED for a month, and then switch back to projector back and forth once a month, and at some point after month 4, you can decide to not switch anymore. I'm gonna bet that you stay with that OLED. That would be my guess.
I'm gonna go out on a very short limb and say that I do think this actually is quantifiable. But before that, I want to dispel of the whole reflected light versus direct light thing. I know there's people who are like, out in nature, we're only ever seeing reflected light, from the sun or whatever, and that makes a difference. No, I mean, first of all, bioluminescence, that's direct light. That's not coming from reflected light from the sun, and it's not as though we can't see that. But no, I mean, your eyes don't know the difference in photons between a photon that was reflected off of something versus a photon that was emitted from something. Your eyes don't know the difference between that. But what your eyes do notice, without question, is contrast. And your eyes also notice, without question, sheer nit level. And those things are definitely quantifiable. And I will make the claim that that's what's responsible for like, flat out preferring, size aside, flat out preferring the look of a projected image over, say, an OLED or a very high contrast LCD. So one thing is, just that sheer light output level. On OLEDs, even if you turn them way down, right? And all the people who are claiming OLEDs aren't bright enough, which is insane, even going up to just 120 nits, for standard dynamic range. Our eyes, that your pupil starts to move right around the 80 nit level. There's a little bit of, obviously depends on ambient light conditions, but if you're in a pure blackness and then you have something that's upwards of, even 80 nits in some studies is like a little bit on the high end, but like certainly anywhere over 80 nits, your pupil just starts to respond and you have no control over that. You can't say, I'm aware and I'm going to stop my pupils from dilating.
Right.
That just doesn't happen. Your pupils are going to respond certainly anywhere over 80 nits. So even at the completely industry standard for standard dynamic range of 120 nits, which your OLED can definitely show you 120 nits, your pupils are going to be responding. Whereas if you're going for the cinema standard of a mere 50 to 56 nits as the maximum, you can actually have your pupils fully dilated in a fully blacked out theater, and there won't be any pupillary response in your eye from a projected image. That's quantifiable. That's a physiological difference that's happening there. And then on top of that is that contrast. I've definitely had the people who say, I can look at a JVC projector and I can look at a Sony projector, which are two top-end projectors. But I can look at the measurements and go, the JVC has quantifiably higher contrast and deeper black levels than the Sony projectors. And that's just like an objective fact. You can measure that. But many people will go, I just look at the two of them, and to me, the JVC, liquid crystal on silicon, the DILA projectors, they look like a gigantic OLED or a gigantic LCD, like they're closer to that, versus I look at the Sony and it looks more film-like, or it looks more projector-like, and I prefer that. And it's like, well, the difference is the contrast. And that's a quantifiable thing. And it's like, why would we prefer objectively lower contrast in something? And here, I'm going to make the claim that some movies, either they're mastered or have been remastered for the home release on a flat panel display. And so the people making those mastering decisions are doing that on a direct view display. And it's probably most accurate to view them back on a direct view display at that point. But there are many movies that are mastered in a full-size dubbing stage on a projected image screen. And I could make the argument that it's like you put that on a direct view flat panel display and they're overly contrasty now. They're more contrasty than the mastering, the engineers making the decisions in the dubbing stage. They're like, they were viewing it on a projected display. You view it back on a similarly capable projected display. And now you're seeing it exactly how they intended. Whereas on the flat panel, it might be overly contrasty at that point. Or you're seeing things below black that you weren't really meant to see. Stuff like that can happen. So I think there is a quantifiable side to this, and that it's not out of the realm to have a genuine argument that viewing it on a lower contrast projector with lower nit levels is actually closer to what was intended when it was mastered on a dubbing stage.
All right. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
So where he's living now in Spokane, Washington, they have the Garland Theater where they still show 35mm film projection. He got to see the 40th anniversary release of The Goonies as well as the 1989 Batman film there. In his opinion, it was the best he's ever seen those movies look. Is he just romanticizing that, or is there genuinely something different about film projection versus how it looks on OLED, and even compared to how it looks on modern digital movie theater projectors? I think what Rob just was mentioning kind of addresses all that. Yeah. So I don't know that we need to expand that much.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a way that the shadows were meant to look on those that were absolutely intended to be shown on film and were mastered on film in a projection setting. And it's like, now you show that on a flat panel or even a really high contrast digital projector, and it's like something about the shadows doesn't look right. Like the shadows look crushed now, or they look overly dark and like noisy or dingy, or just that digital
there may be
look.
Artifacts and stuff in there that the original people could not see. The original mixer master,
it's just hidden by the
engineers that could not see them, but they were there. It's kind of like every once in a while you'll see, you'll hear, oh, there's a 7 hertz tone in this scene of this movie. Right. We can see it on the stuff, and everybody's like, yeah, but so I need a subwoofer that can do it. No,
and it can be the same with.
It was never meant to be there.
It can be the same with highlight detail, right? You view it on the OLED and you literally squint. Even though you're like, objectively, it's not that bright, but it's like, no, it's 120 nits. You're going to squint if you had nothing that was, above 40 nits prior to that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Henry wants to revisit a potential change to a system that he's asked about before. So we didn't give him the right answer, apparently. So his room was quite small. His projection screen nearly goes wall to wall due to the narrow width of the room, and that means his front 3 speakers all need to go below the bottom edge of his screen. I think we told him to lay him down, right?
That's going to come up.
Yeah, he's using his Paradigm Founder series speakers. He's already toyed with the idea of replacing the Founder 40B bookshelf left and right speakers with a pair of Founder 70 LCR speakers, same as his current center speaker, and put them all directly below his screen. A big part of the problem is that the floor is not level. It slopes downward on the right-hand side and has always presented challenges for a speaker setup. Using some furniture risers, he's managed to make the equipment cabinet level and stable, but the right side speaker stand has always been a challenge. He's also never felt entirely comfortable with his front left and right speakers being so close to his side walls. He put some small acoustic panels there to try to mitigate some of the reflected sound energy, but he's never been able to shake the idea that he preferred to simply have them physically farther away from the side walls. We previously suggested just turning the bookshelf speakers on their sides and putting them on top of the equipment cabinet. I still think that's a good idea, but they're actually slightly trapezoidal, both from front to back and top to bottom, so they block a tiny bit of the bottom of the screen, and he really doesn't want to deal with the hassle of raising a screen an inch or two. He sits 7 feet away from the front of that equipment cabinet. It's a 1-seat theater, so he'd still be in between the front left and right tweeters. So what do we think? Can we revisit our opinions on this proposed change, or replacing his Paradigm Founder 40B bookshelf speakers with the 70 LCRs being an improvement? I'm going to be honest with you. Anything you do in here is not going to be, I think, a massive improvement. I mean, I don't know that you're looking for improvement. Is that what he's looking for? He's looking for improvement, or he's just looking for, I don't like how my setup looks in front of me at this moment.
Absolutely sounds like asking for permission at this point, in not so many words. Because, I mean, my only concern is, will spending the money, because he's talking about spending money here, although he could sell his bookshelf speakers and recoup some of that. I don't think he'll recoup all of it. But, my concern is you spend some money, does it actually make any sort of audible improvement? And I'm still going to argue, I don't think it's going to make an audible improvement. But if you enjoy it more and you don't mind spending the money, like, it's your money. So if you enjoy it more and you don't mind spending the money, like, absolutely you have my permission to do this, because this has clearly been bugging him for a long time. And I'm like, why? I mean, the reason to continue on with being bothered by it is the money. But if the money, and that's your decision, is not a problem, then do this, man. Like, it sounds like it's been bugging you for a long time.
The real solution here, I think, is to wall mount his left and right speakers, which I don't think he wants to do.
But where?
Well, forward. They'd have to come forward so that he could. They would not be in the line of sight. He would have to angle them pretty probably heavily, based on how close, depending on how close they ended up to him.
I mean, he's so close to them already. So
I'm just telling you. I mean, he doesn't like the floor. He doesn't like the everything. I mean, the speakers being on that cabinet that close to the because what he really wants is a wider room. I mean, but he can't get it.
Yep. Yep.
So there's that.
And I'll tell you, buying a new pair of speakers costs less than buying a wider room. So
yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So you can keep them as wide as possible while wall mounting them on the sides and then pulling them forward so they're not in your line of sight. I don't sonically, like Rob said, I think it actually might, especially getting an LCR, because they're probably going to be an MTM design, and that puts the tweeter even closer to the center channel.
That's why I was thinking, you turn the existing bookshelf speakers on their sides with the tweeters on the outside, and at least you keep that separation maximized.
If it were me, I would not be looking at LCRs. I'd be looking at normal bookshelf speakers, maybe that aren't Paradigm, because Paradigm are perfectly fine,
or just a different series of Paradigm, because they're still going to match pretty darn nicely. It's just not the founder.
With a tweeter that's on near the edge of a cabinet and then turning them on their side, rather than getting these. I mean, get whatever you want at this point.
I mean, given that it's a one-seat theater, I mean, is that going to make a difference? Honestly, is having the tweeters a foot farther apart from each other really going to make a sonic difference in a one-seat theater? So
I would still say take the LCRs and mount them vertically on the side walls and pull them forward if it were me, but. I mean, it's not me.
No, my opinion is this clearly has been bugging you for a long time. I think you should do it. And obviously you're aware that it's going to cost you some money. And as long as you're okay with that, I'm very okay with that.
No, that's whatever. Nostalgia got the better of him. They decided to go ahead and buy himself a turntable. He went with the Technics, whatever. SL50C. It reminds him of the SL1200 he had back in his teenage years, and he just couldn't resist. So there's the nostalgia factor. Bell said his theater has always been about movies first and music second, and he's gone to a lot of effort to have minimal visual distractions. My dude, your room's blue.
Not with the lights off. Can't know.
I'm sure it isn't. I'm just giving you a hard time. So while he initially thought the initial thought was to put the new turntable on top of his equipment cabinet, either to the left or right of a center speaker so that it would be easy to access. He just couldn't stand the look, so for now he put it inside the equipment cabinet. The plastic cover cannot be used, but he's fine with putting fabric cover over it when it's not in use. Okay?
Yep.
But it just feels kind of wrong having it hidden away like that. Like, people are always wanting to show off their turntables, right? So how do we feel about it? If we were in his theater, would we leave the turntable in the cabinet, or would we bring it out and put it on one of the side tables? Have we seen the back of his room?
In previous photos, I didn't have one for this example.
Is he sitting on the back wall?
No. His seat is well away from the back wall. The single seat.
Okay. If you went for a side table, the included RCA cable with its ground wire would not be long enough. We'd be able to just replace that with any decent RCA cable. We also need to get a longer ground wire. So what I would do is go back to the store and give them back their turntable and get my money back. But that's not the question that you're asking.
And it definitely is not.
Because that's what I would do. Okay. The correct answer is to leave it inside this thing.
Okay.
And if it really, really bothers you that you can't like show it off every once in a while, is to install like a shelf that rolls out.
Pull out shelf.
You could pull out shelf there. Now it might rattle with your subwoofer, so maybe you don't want to do this, but none of this is going to be optimal. So you would slide it out and then put your little record on it and put it back. Hey, you know what? While we're dreaming, you can make it motorized. Press a button, and your doors open, and the thing comes out, and then you could put a thing on it, press another button, the whole thing closes and it starts. Whatever, who cares? I think if it were me, and you are really worried about distractions, I would take that side table that you have it on, or to potentially have it on, and put it behind your seat.
Right.
So it's still out. You're going to have to buy a longer cable, but you're going to have to do that anyways. And yes, you can just get a longer RCA cable and a longer ground wire.
And I'll touch on that in a second. Yep.
Yeah. But I would put it behind or someplace else in the room.
Just pull the side
you.
Table back a little bit. Sure.
Yes. And do that. I would not have it towards the front of the room. There's too much crap up there to begin with. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean there's a lot of stuff and you're trying to, you don't want to, you're trying to get rid of your speaker stands and now you're going to put a turntable up there. Put it behind you. That's what I would do.
Okay. I mean, overall, I think it's fine to leave it where it is. My only consideration is as I get older, I don't necessarily want to like crouch down or go on my knees as much as I used to. So like loading vinyl records with the turntable that low is maybe my like physical concern. But otherwise, I'd be perfectly fine leaving it where it is. But yeah, the thing is the exact model of turntable that you bought, you have the option of changing it from phono level output, where you probably would want to use that ground wire connection because it helps reduce noise. But you can also flick a switch and turn it to line level output, which means at that point, it's got a built-in phono preamp, which is very, very good. That's already built into that Technics turntable. There's no downgrade in sound quality by using the built-in phono preamp. Now you have a line level output, just like a CD player, exact same sort of signal. And so, yes, at that point, you can run any length of regular RCA cable, any amount in your room, and it'll be totally fine. And you don't need an additional ground wire in order to do that. So just flick it to line level. It would mean you no longer use the phono-specific input on the back of your Denon. You'd now want to use like the CD input, for example, or any of the other RCA inputs that are expecting a line level signal. But it's as simple as that. So all options are open.
When that bothers you, you can just change the name of it to Phono 1.
You can
or
manually
something
change
like
the name.
that. You can edit the name so
That's
that
right.
it says my super awesome.
So for me, purely from a physical point of view of what I want to do for putting a record onto a turntable, like he said, what would I do in his room? That was one of the questions, right? I would personally probably put it onto a side table just because it's going to be easier to access the top of that platter and I don't have to bend down as much.
All right. Stan asks, does Dolby Vision 2 even make sense? Nope. All right. Next question. Stan is specifically talking about home theater enthusiasts who go through the trouble of darkening their rooms and calibrating displays. The whole point of doing all that is to match the mastering environment and the mastering of monitors as closely as possible, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, it's not that. So all of the Dolby Vision 2 features sound like they're about compromising for when you don't have a darkened room or a calibrated display. Have a bright room? Dolby Vision 2 will detect that. Please don't detect my room. Just don't do that.
They've absolutely mentioned it.
And raise the black level and shadow detail to compensate. Want your sports to look more vivid? Dolby Vision 2 can mess with the colors and contrast a bit for you. Want your video games to look more vibrant? Dolby Vision 2 can change the white point and display motion smoothing. But the big one that bothered Stan was the bi-directional tone mapping. If the content creators wanted certain highlights to be brighter, wouldn't they have simply encoded them to be brighter in the first place?
Yup.
What ends up being the point of calibrating display if you just want to ignore how the content was originally mastered? Will we be able to turn Dolby Vision 2 off? If we just want to see nit for nit how the original signal looked, will we be able to do that? Just a simple settings toggle, perhaps. Might be. Usually, any feature that changes, that makes changes or adds things to a signal that's coming in usually can be defeated, not always, but
in
usually
some way
can
or
be
another.
defeated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So will we be able to turn Dolby? All the features that you just mentioned in here, I can't imagine there's not a high, medium, low, off
right
version
well,
of this.
maybe not necessarily off, but high, medium, low, or something to that effect. I mean, with Dolby Vision right now, like if your display receives a Dolby Vision signal, almost all displays have like separate Dolby Vision picture modes. Now, there's sometimes a variety, right? Sometimes there's a Dolby Vision Dark and a Dolby Vision Bright, or a Dolby Vision Night and a Dolby Vision Day, and then sometimes there's still a filmmaker mode version of it or whatever, but it's all kind of under a separate group of picture modes that are automatically the only choices you have when it detects a Dolby Vision signal. So there's the possibility that the only way to completely get away from Dolby Vision 2 is to make sure you can change that in the source device, right? Where the source device is not sending out Dolby Vision 2, and you can change that there. For example, you can set your Apple TV 4K to never output Dolby Vision and to only ever output HDR10, at which point, yep, you're completely relying on your TV to accurately map that signal the way that you've calibrated it. So in that way, there will almost certainly be a workaround of some sort. But yeah, I think if a Dolby Vision 2 signal comes into your display, it's probably going to give you a limited selection of picture modes that you can choose from, exactly the way it is with Dolby Vision right now. But yeah, no, I'm totally on your side. I mean, I get where the bidirectional tone mapping idea comes from. It's exactly the same as your audio up mixers, where people are like, I bought 11 speakers. I want all 11 speakers to always make sound. So I use an audio up mixer to take my 5.1 signal source and have sounds come out of all 11 speakers. Same idea. I bought a 10,000 nit display. I don't want it to top out at 1,000 nits just because that's what the signal said to do. I want it to use all 10,000 nits that I paid for in the display that I bought. So I get that. But yes, that absolutely should be an option for the user to decide. There should at least be and I think Dolby is enough on the side of following creators' intent that they're not going to be like, well, now you're forced to bidirectionally tone map this thing. I'm pretty sure they're going to have, at least for that particular feature, an option to say, no, just follow the original signal and don't go above whatever the original signal said. That one, I would be surprised if there's not a defeatable setting for that one specifically.
Paul has bought two Ultra HD Blu-ray players, a Sony X700 and a Sony 8X800. Both were used. Sony was only out about $150 for both of them, but both were used when he bought them. Yeah. I got it. When I first read that sentence, I thought he meant he used them. I'm like, I know. Anyways, but both have also had some playback issues where they freeze at certain points in certain movies. Mm-hmm. That's the whole why you bought it used, because somebody else was like, it's not working right.
Well,
so would buying a brand new Panasonic UB820 fix that? He isn't super keen to spend $400, but if it would fix this freezing playback issue, it would be worth it to him. He's only using these players for Ultra HD Blu-rays, so he doesn't care about any upscaling features. So what do we say? So yes, it could be that there's something defective and you just got unlucky with both these things. But if it's the same movie on both players,
it could be the disc.
It could be the disc.
Yeah.
And I've had issues with players in the past where they don't switch very quickly between layers.
Yep, for sure.
Because there are layers on these things.
Oh, yes.
And
I mean, there could be 3 layers on Ultra HD Blu-rays. Yeah. So that could be part of it for sure.
So if you're noticing it on 2 players on the same disc in the same spot, I would wonder if that's what it was.
Yeah, it's a definite potential culprit. Yeah. If it's something like a very, very small scratch or blemish that you really cannot see with your human eye, well, then the Panasonic's not going to be any better at doing that on that particular disc. But the Panasonics, I will say, like out of the mass market players, they are the best at handling those layer changes. The UB820 is the one to get if you want your triple layer discs to play back as smoothly as possible. Also, if you have a Dolby Vision display, the Panasonic players are the only ones that handle Dolby Vision automatically the way that any reasonable consumer would want them to, with the Sony's still forcing you to turn Dolby Vision both on and back off, which is absolutely insane. So I can justify you getting a Panasonic for sure, but I cannot guarantee that spending that money is going to, like on certain discs, because if the disc itself has a little tiny hairline scratch somewhere and that's what's causing the problem, the Panasonic's not going to fix that.
Steve says he found us thanks to GJ and the Bright Side Home Theater podcast. I don't know who that is.
No idea.
Steve is under the impression that we are not fond of 3D movies.
I mean,
Have
he hasn't
I not
listened
made
to
that clear?
hasn't listened to that for a long time. Because Tom, that's a true statement. But I have been the recurring 3D fan for ages.
The lone voice in the wilderness crying out that 3D movies are cool.
It's been Rob for ages, and a handful, literally count them on one hand, group of other people who are like, yeah, 3D. I kind of dig 3D.
Anyway, Steve remains a fan of 3D, and he owns a collection of about 70 3D Blu-rays.
I have more.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, he buys stuff that's not even worth watching. He used to have a 65-inch LG OLED that could still do 3D in his media room, but that display has been upgraded to a current 77-inch OLED model. And, of course, the new model no longer supports 3D. Yeah. Don't worry. In about 10 years, it's coming back. maybe 15. His wife suggested that they keep the 65-inch OLED and move it to the upstairs living room. He's got a 5.1.4 speaker set up in that room. It's even better. It's an even better 7.2.4 configuration in the media room, of course. But the living room setup is rarely used. It's a wide open concept space, so there's simply no way to equalize the base experience that he can get in his media. No way it can equal the base experience he can get in his media room. And if he cranks up the living room system to watch movies, it bothers other people in the house. Yeah. So how is he going to truly enjoy his 3D movie collection?
Yep.
He has thought of adding an ultra short throw projector and a roll down screen to the media room, but his wife would definitely have something to say about that. So when he thought about getting, a pair of AR glasses that can create a virtual big screen, and he's seen some of them advertised that way. But how do you get the signal from a 3D Blu-ray player into one of those types of glasses? And then the whole idea would be to use the glasses along with his existing 7.2.4 speaker setup in his media room. Yeah, this is going to be complicated. He's not interested in a fully self-contained headset with built-in sound, and something like the Apple Vision Pro costs too much anyway. Well, if you think that costs too much, this whole endeavor is going to be too expensive for you. So can we suggest any sort of solution to this? Ideally, it would cost around $500 or less. No.
I mean, I've got one that might not be fully satisfying, but I do have a suggestion.
It's really that you have to get a display that does it in this room. I mean, that unfortunately, you could do what only an insane person like Rob would do, and just keep the other display. And then when you want to watch a 3D movie, just put it in front of your current display and switch to HDMI cable.
It could be.
I'll be honest with you. That's probably the best suggestion here, because that's about the only way that this is going to work. I mean, really, you could roll a table in there or just set a table up, like right in front of your.
And now you'd have the same field of view as your 77-inch with the 65, 1 foot in front of it. Yeah.
Kind of think that's the way to go, to be honest with you, because it's free and you get to use your speakers and you get to see it in the same room and you get to share it with somebody else. Maybe your wife doesn't like 3D, in which case then this is a lot of work just for you, which is probably better anyways. That's what I would do.
That is a possibility, but the other one I'm going to point you to, because this is a way to do all of the things that you exactly asked for, but you have to be a little bit specific here. You could get a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 4 Pro, and it would need to be the 4 or the 4 Pro, not the 5, because the 5 cannot play 3D Blu-rays, and Sony is never going to issue a firmware update to let it play 3D Blu-rays, but the PlayStation 4 can. And then you could get the first generation, and it would have to be the first generation of PlayStation VR. And those are still available to buy. You can get the PSVR headset that worked with the PlayStation 4, and you can watch 3D Blu-rays in your PlayStation VR headset, and those are OLED displays inside of that first generation PSVR. The black levels and the contrast are fantastic, and it was never HDR. 3D Blu-rays were never HDR, so they look pretty darn good in there. And then the PlayStation VR does not have audio built into it, and the PS4 works like a regular 3D Blu-ray player, so it is simply using the PSVR as the display only and still playing the sound out of the HDMI port to your regular audio system, and it will function. The only caveat to all of this is that the PSVR resolution to your eyes is slightly on the low side. You might see some screen door effect in there. But I will say the 3D effect is fantastic because you actually have both eyes completely isolated from one another, and the 3D effect is as good as it can possibly be. And you can get all that. You get a Generation 1 PlayStation VR. Do not get the PlayStation VR 2. The PlayStation VR 2 cannot do 3D Blu-rays, but the original PlayStation VR and a PlayStation 4, you can get those for like certainly under $600. So there you go.
Or you can buy a table for like $23.
That's right. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying everything he asked about, you could do it with a PS4 and the first generation of the PlayStation VR.
Infinite Gary, now that it's 2026, is there any brand new gear that Tom and Rob are highly anticipating to purchase? He's actually more interested in finding a new TV under 50 inches that will satisfy him for sports viewing. I don't know about sports viewing, but there sounded like there were some TVs coming out, some smaller OLEDs that are on the way. Or something.
I mean, they're still around. And those, the 42 and the 48-inch OLEDs, they're not getting any of the new tandem OLED or any of that stuff. Those aren't coming to the smaller screen sizes. So if Gary wasn't satisfied with the older ones, the new ones really aren't changing much at all. So it might still not be satisfying for him. And I haven't seen any RGB mini-LED or micro-LED backlit screens that are smaller than 55 inches. So the new tech isn't coming to the small screen sizes for Gary specifically. But I'm not anticipating.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying I'm not anticipating any purchases home theater wise for me this year. Other than
just bought a car.
I just bought a car. I might get that Dirac art upgrade just to try it. There's too many people asking about it for me to have no experience with it, so that might be the only thing I buy.
So I'm going to be getting that Ghostwire pretty soon.
Okay,
and I'm looking forward to doing that whole thing and trying to figure out how to make that work.
Yeah.
And how many feet I need, because right now it comes in like 50 or 100 foot spools, and like the difference. I mean, it's like $1 a foot, which is not that bad, it's still,
you do need more than you think. Because, you have to go to, like, perimeters and to go around corners. You can do, like, you can't just do, like, a single 45-degree bend because then the adhesive is on the wrong side. So you actually need to do, like, fold it back on itself a little ways and then do a 45-degree bend so the adhesive remains on the correct side. So, you need a little bit longer length than you might anticipate.
Yeah, so it's going to be a bit of a thing. So that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Stefan asked, what happened to the SVS 3000 series? You saw a promo saying the 3000 series subs, the SB and the PB, were at their lowest prices ever, and now on the SVS website, only the Micro 3000 and the In-Wall 3000 are still listed.
Yeah.
He's really bummed. He was planning to buy one SB 3000 now and the second one in September after saving up some more money. But the SB 3000 is the perfect physical size for his needs with nearly 2,500 cubic feet of air to pressurize. He doesn't think a smaller SB 2000 Pros are quite up to the task. What should he do now? Buy, I guess, used.
There is that.
You could also look in their B stock. They might have something in B stock.
And you can still find B stock ones at Crutchfield right now. I would not anticipate those still being around in September though. So if you were dead set on the SB 3000s, you'd be looking at B stock. Like I say, Crutchfield, as of this recording, have them available, and you'd probably want to buy them both all at once. But depending on the type of person you are, you're either going to love my alternative suggestion or absolutely hate it. Because it all depends a little bit on how much your ego is tied to these things. But if you're going by purely objective, measurable performance, the RSL Speedwoofer 10S Mark II, which has almost identical physical dimensions, but has a slot-ported design rather than a sealed design. And I know it's like we're going from a 12-inch driver to a 10-inch. We're going from a higher wattage amplifier to a lower wattage amplifier. But if you look at the objective CEA 2010 measurements, the RSL Speedwoofer 10S Mark II has almost identical output as the SB 3000. That's the difference between ported and sealed. But in terms of just sheer output, they're almost identical, and the physical size is almost identical. And they cost a whole lot less. So if you're like, I love the lower cost, the physical size is already perfect, and I'm happy with the objective measurements, you're going to be like, oh, I didn't even think of that, and that's a fantastic suggestion, and you just saved me a whole bunch of money. But if you're the type who goes, I can't go down to a 10-inch subwoofer that costs less just because who cares about the objective measurements? I just can't fathom doing such a thing. Then you're going to hate me suggesting that, but that is the great alternative for you to consider.
I'm down with that. All right. Do we have time to do one more?
We're 1 or 2 hours.
I'm trying real hard to get through this podcast, Rob. I'm suffering over here. I guess we'll do one more and then we're going to be done. John in the UK. John's 65-inch Sony X95 TV died on him, so he's looking to buy a replacement and to go up in screen size to 75 inches. He knows we're big OLED fans, and he already owns an OLED that he has in his home cinema, but this new TV is going in a lounge where it'll be on all day and sometimes gets paused and forgotten about. Mm-hmm. He's had a bad burn experience in the past, so he's leery of getting an OLED for this particular room. He was never happy with his old Sony's interface, but maybe they've gotten better in recent years. He's seen the recommendations go TCL. He's never bought anything from TCL before, and he isn't sure if he should stick with the brands that he knows. Since he's in the UK, the model numbers are a little bit different, but he's seen the TCL C8K get some good reviews. It would be a stretch for his budget a bit, though. So do we feel strongly about any particular brand and model that we think he should get? As he has mentioned, he'd like a better interface than what his Sony had. I wish he would tell us what his old one was. Yeah,
because he said X95, but there were a whole bunch of letters that came after that, depending on the model year, so I don't know how far back we're going.
And the built-in sound doesn't matter, as he has a separate sound system using a Denon X2800H receiver in the lounge. It would also help us if he told us what other TV, because he says he's got an OLED.
He does.
And he didn't say anything about the interface of that one. So he's like, I have a LG and I like that interface, or I have a Samsung and I like that interface. Maybe it doesn't matter because he doesn't use the interface of the TV in his media room.
Possibly.
TCL uses Roku, doesn't it? And
they used to, but they're Google TV now. Like almost everyone else. Like Sony is
I don't like
now.
the Roku. I won't. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sony is Google TV now, but they weren't always. And if you're going back to like the X95s, if you go back far enough, there were definitely some that were Android TV. They've been working with Google for a long time, but there was somewhat that the Android TV interface, and then they switched over to the Google TV interface. Now, out of all of the like, we didn't make this ourselves interfaces, I do think Google TV is the best, but I don't love it because it still has ads that you can't get rid of, and it still has Google's own ideas about how to organize things on that front page, and I don't love all of that. But all things considered, like compared to the Amazon Fire TV interface, oh my goodness, is the Google TV interface so much better than that. And like even LG's WebOS, it's gotten worse and worse and worse over the years. The Samsung interface, some people like it, some people don't. It's one single strip all along the bottom, that ties in interface. So that's kind of a love it or hate it. So, but okay. Out of all of them, I think Google is maybe one of the least offensive, but there's things I don't love about it. So it depends on how old that Sony that you used to have. If it was the Android TV, I think you'll like the Google TV interface better. But yeah, it's going to be that. But I think you should get a TCL. I think that makes great sense in here. Now, so the C8K in the UK, that is the same as the QM8K in North America. And I'm a huge fan of the QM8K. But for a lounge setup where it's like, it sounds like it's kind of on in the background all day long, sometimes gets paused and walked away from, and that's pushing your budget to get the C8K, there's nothing wrong with the C7K, which is the same as the QM7K over in North America. That's a really good TV and a significant cost savings. I feel very comfortable saying that, all things considered, I think you should get a TCL C7K. I think that's going to be a fantastic choice for you in here. But if you really hate the Google TV interface, I mean, maybe you throw a different streaming device onto there. With the money you save by going with the C7K, you can afford an Apple TV 4K or whatever other streaming device you want, and then that bypasses all of that.
Yeah. All right, who do we have left?
We have on our list here, we got Nelson, Tyler, and Patrick. And I'll mention Daniel also sent an email that came in on Monday, so those are the names on the list. We'll say once again, if you have not heard your name even mentioned, right? Maybe we didn't get to your email this week, but I mentioned those names. If you didn't hear your name even mentioned or we didn't talk about your email, please try sending it to us again, because we did have emails that went missing in November. That seems to be all cleared up at this point. But yeah, if you're just like, hey, I know I sent an email to these guys and they've never even mentioned my name, please send it again, because we are not trying to ignore anybody.
Yeah. I want to thank our listeners of the week. I want to thank Steve for going to avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 120 patrons over at patreon.com, including John.
That is right, Steve. Thanks very much for that PayPal donation. And then patreon.com/AVRant podcast is where you can go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So big thanks to our 120 patrons over there. John, thanks for being one of them.
Shell's got some notes of gratitude from Brandon, Ash, Nathan, Henry, Grinder, Carl, Stan, Art, Paul, Stefan, Scott, John, and Patrick. Thank you for thanking us.
It was a big old list because it was the holidays and many people were wishing us Happy New Year and Merry Christmas. So Brandon, Ash, Nathan, Henry, Garinder, Carl, Stan, Paul, Art, Stefan, Scott, John, and Patrick. Thanks so much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.